Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of Rugby League Back Chat. We are, as you will have already noticed, in new surroundings. We have unfortunately fallen foul of the coronavirus. We're not in quarantine though, we've just simply moved to somewhere where we're allowed to do it. That is League Express headquarters, and that's where we are today. The show will go on with Eorl Crabtree, Huddersfield Giants' favourite, bit of a Super League legend as well, I suppose. He'll take that. Head of the match officials at the RFL, Steve Ganson, and head of the RLPA, Garreth Carvell. Chaps, thanks for coming. There's only one place we can start, really, isn't there? What we're going to do for the next 2 weeks?
That is the question. It's all up in the air, isn't it? Literally, it's a tough period for all of us, but not just in rugby league. I think for everyone trying to get through at the moment, it's a difficult time, and I think we have to be real about the situation as well. It's a scary time in that sense, but rugby league is probably in the back of our minds because we miss that as a hobby, as something we're passionate about. But this goes beyond rugby league. It's a worrying time.
Steve, without trying to, I think one thing that's probably happened throughout this is we've had a lot of doomsayers and a lot of fearful things said. Let's try and get to the bottom of it, what the actual impact is going to be. Do we know for certain exactly how this is going to impact rugby league? Can we make a prediction right here, right now and say X, Y and Z will happen, or are we all a little bit in the unknown?
Well, it's not going to make it stronger.
No.
That's for sure. I think over the coming months there's going to be challenges for everyone involved in the game. And it's going to be, really tough, I would imagine. And, as people have said, rugby league's been tough and resilient for 125 years. I think now it's going to be really put to the test. But as Earl's just said, it's not just rugby league. It's life in general. It's other sports, and it's people's lives. So it's far bigger, and it's tough for everybody.
Gareth, you spoke to players, no doubt. How are they at the minute? What's the general feeling? But B, how were they knowing that they would have to play last week when effectively the rest of sport was in lockdown?
Well, it's a funny one, that, because the government guidance wasn't to close any sporting venue, anything down. The FA decided on their own they were going to do that. They went ahead and did it, and everyone just followed suit. So the RFL actually just did exactly what the government was saying. So relating that back to the players, everyone was absolutely fine. The supporters were fine. Everyone playing the game was on board with that. Obviously, that's changed daily. Things have come sort of around pretty quickly, and I think the Super League, I think that'll be absolutely fine. Especially with the club. Me and Earl were talking earlier about the clubs with backers. The money men. I think the problem's going to be, Championship One, especially those clubs that we know are struggling. I'm not going to say any clubs' names, but they live hand to mouth each month. The gates for those particular games, pay the players' wages, pay the rent, pay everything else. So they're the clubs that are going to really, really struggle now. We've done it before with the RLPA, where we've gone in, albeit in different circumstances because of a mistake by the previous board or whatever, and they're spending too much money. They're going to go under. So we could, there's an option there to work with the RFL and everyone else to go in there and negotiate something that will allow these clubs to survive. Because the way I see it, I'd rather have 80% of my wage than no percent. And if these clubs go under, that's in real danger.
So early days, obviously, this is going to develop day on day, probably hour by hour, really. But what sort of things could you try and negotiate that would mean it was good for the clubs, good for the players?
I think it all comes down to money. It's as simple as that. That's what's going to see the game either survive or not, and these clubs survive or not. So that's what it would have to be. Now, going into those clubs and saying to the players, boys, you're going to have to can your wage this month or whatever, is not going to work. You can't just go in and say that. The way I'd approach it would be that perhaps this month there's not going to be any gates, so we need to make a few cuts. The games, according to the RFL, are going to be played around August when the cup's on and everything like that. So those gates are going to be there rather than here at the moment, so there'll be money there. Can we defer it, you know, and pay extra there? Or if you were to go across the board, give the boys a carrot. You know, me and Steve were talking a little bit earlier about clubs have a sort of an idea where they're going to finish. They do their budget on that. So say they're going to finish 5th, the boys will say, right, we're going to take 10% of your wage, but if you finish 3rd, you're going to have it back.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. It's always a compromise. The players have got to buy into it. You know, at the end of the day, it's no one's fault. It's something that's come sort of out of the blue, really, a bit of a shock to everyone. And it's affecting a lot of people, and it will continue to do that. So it's trying to do the best as a whole, rather than us and them, or, you know, we've got to look after the game as a whole and sort of have a longer term view as well.
The thing is, Earl, it's not just match revenue, is it? It's not gate receipts. You'll know from your role at Huddersfield in the commercial department, it's going to affect the amount of money that you're going to simply lose on that.
Yeah, we're not really reliant so much on gate receipts because the season ticket holders, majority of. So the walk up isn't massively high. I think where we lose our money is in different areas, whether it be commercial sponsorships especially. You've got your main sponsors in the middle of the shirt, all over the shirts, and then you've got the box holders. We've got 26 box holders who spend quite a bit of money to come and watch rugby league. Now, questions will be asked by these sponsorships, you know, these sponsors who want to know what they're getting back for the money, especially in this sort of turbulent time now where they want to save money, because obviously battening down the hatches and lockdown, isolation, these are words that are being used, and these do scare businesses as much as anything else. A lot of businesses are going to go out of business through this. So now question marks will be asked about where we actually spend our money. So this is a very, very tough time for businesses, sponsors, and you know, these other things like lotteries. You know, rugby league and ourselves, we make a lot more money out of in revenue through lotteries. So now suddenly those questions are asked. Are they going to want to spend the extra £2 per week or whatever it is on lotteries? It's all these things, but it's the ongoing side of that as well. We've got a catering company within the stadium who will buy locally off Jones's Pies, for instance. Suddenly they're not buying pies, not selling anything. So Jones's Pies, then the ingredients company who they use, it's a massive knock-on effect, is this, which is going to affect absolutely everybody. We're reliant on Sky money as well. I think that is obviously the biggest one. Got a lot of wages to fill at the moment. As a club, that puts you in a really, really tough position, and then obviously our jobs as well. So there's a lot of question marks. This is very early days at the moment. Hopefully we'll be supported. Hopefully we can get the right advice, but I think it is support that we all need, especially financially.
You mentioned Sky. Rugby League or Super League was Super Sunday, wasn't it, this week, because they had some holes to fill.
Good.
There was a suggestion that Super League may carry on, play behind closed doors, because he put a proposal to Sky that we will keep playing, you give us some money and so on. Steve, you know, would that have worked? Could that have worked? I guess the government are going to take that out of our hands at this point as a sport. Would it have been a good idea?
I think you've answered it. I think Rugby League have, you know, if you look at it, they've had a great relationship with Sky. Sky has been brilliant for Rugby League over the years, and I think Rugby League did follow the advice of the government, as Gareth said, for as far as it could, and it supported its contracts with the broadcaster as such, and went out there on Sunday. But unfortunately for the sport and for Sky and Rugby League, it was taken. That option was taken away. So whether it had worked or not, you'd have to say of all people that love Rugby League and it being on Sunday afternoon, absolutely, you'd have said it would have been really good. I think the sport, everybody in the sport accepts that the relationship with Sky and the way that Sky supported Rugby League and hopefully continues to support Rugby League in the future is paramount to all of us within the game.
Right, I'm going to open the discussion up then. We have got a logistical problem. We have fixtures to play. We've got an Ashes series that's 2 weeks after the grand final. What do we do, gents? How do we play these games? I'm opening the floor up to all three of you.
My initial thought, and this doesn't go on revenue and gates that I spoke about before, was within Super League and what have you, cancel the loop fixtures, make sure that everyone just plays each other once, and that would cut sort of the backlog. Now it's just going to be so difficult to squeeze the games in. The floods and everything that happened earlier in the year, the RFL are struggling to get those games played. So to get another month or beyond, to get those crammed into the season when, from my point of view, the players play too many games anyway. Having them so close together, the magic weekend, the bank holiday weekends, I think are just absolutely shocking for the game, for the players. So trying to cram all these games in, it's going to be really difficult, and I think it'll have a detrimental effect, to be honest. I think it'll take the quality of the games down. I don't know what you think, boys.
Totally agree. Well, for me, Magic Weekend goes, Challenge Cup goes. Unfortunately, it's the way it is for me. Loop fixtures go, and we try and drag the season out into a shorter season, but later on as possible. I think it's the only way for me how we can actually sort of deal with it, if we can deal with it. And that way you possibly could get as many games as you can. I think as soon as we can jump back on the season, we do, even if it's not played out till it's full. I think it's important to get it back rolling, get back into playing as soon as we possibly can for the game. The longer we have this gap, the longer or the harder it's going to be to continue with the sport as it is. I'd love to see us to get back on track as soon as we possibly can. I think that's what we've got to aim for, and then we can start that ball rolling, and it ends when it ends. It begins when it begins, it ends when it ends, and then we start all over again. And I think that's probably the easiest way.
That's an interesting one about the Challenge Cup. I've never thought of sort of cancelling the Challenge Cup. Something that's been around forever, and it's something I'm really keen on, but actually it makes sense to do that. We're in the early stages so far. It's not going to be, well, it will be a massive loss with crowds and everything like that, and it will be a massive loss because the Challenge Cup will be played, but in terms of getting the season back going, I think that's probably it's one of the better options.
What would it do for you trying to schedule referees if we've got a backlog?
You can't do that anyway.
Well,
schedule them anyway.
It's difficult, but we'll do it. We'll do what we have to do. But the governing body, the RFL, I know, working constantly at formats, suggestions, structures. How's best for how do the sport come out of this in the very, very best possible way? And I use the word the sport. So, and I know that people who I work with throughout all of last weekend and the weeks leading up to it, I've been working, although things only kind of reached ahead yesterday, it's not been like that. People have been working very, very closely, all kinds, of alternatives, alternative provisions. As you say, Challenge Cup's iconic for Rugby League. BBC, it's our, real chance, national opportunity for our sport. I would suggest that our sport, we're going to need this more than ever, to create opportunities going forward. So I think at the moment, like you say, people have just got a couple of weeks now. We're in a little bit of a state of limbo. But I'm sure Ralph Rimmer and Robert Elston and Super League and the Players Union and the clubs, I'll all be working together for ultimately, it creates an opportunity as well to galvanise something for everybody. And I know for a fact the Rugby Football League are working tireless with every single opportunity to fulfil all obligations to everyone that's our stakeholders, our fans, our players, our match officials, to try to get the season in a good position.
What would we do? We can't really delay. We can't move back the season. We could cancel the Ashes. I know some people have said that and play on, but you've still got a World Cup in 2021 that again starts 2 weeks after the grand final. It's not an option, is it, just to move everything back and then move 2021 back as well, because then you overlap into a World Cup, or do we get rid of the World Cup? Can we afford to do that?
Or do we start the season earlier? Later, sorry.
Well, if you start it later, then you've got the overlap with the World Cup, or do you just cut the season down?
That's, for me, that's what you do. You have to shorten the number of games. The games played over in Australia, there's a reason they look better. They have a huge pre-season. They look like athletes. I think they have a 6-month pre-season, something. And they can get operations that they need, medical advice, train till you know, they don't want to train anymore, probably most of them anyway. So it's that sort of thing, moving the season forward. If this season has to be moved forward, the next one does, but you take the loops out.
Interesting. And we don't really... What do we do in the meantime? I guess these 2 weeks we've got to use it as well as we can as a sport to find these solutions, haven't we, Steve?
Well, again, as I've said, I think a lot of people are actually spending hours communicating and looking at the very, very best way that the competition and can be fulfilled. And I think that's the position at the moment. But as we're all saying, things are changing. Like yesterday, the Grand National's taking place. This morning, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, the Grand National is probably one of the most iconic sports events in all of the UK.
The Euro's going as well.
You know, imagine, Earl alluded to sponsorship and other. Imagine the money and opportunities being lost from the Grand National.
We'll talk about it after. We are going to have a quick break. After that break, more COVID-19 talk, plus much, much more. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're going to jump straight back into the coronavirus talk and the financial implications. Earl, you were just going to make a point on 2 of the Yorkshire and what's happened there as well.
Yeah, just reading some of the bits about the income and its economy, which is the biggest issue here. Is, again, we talk about rugby league, but the bigger picture is a lot bigger than just the sport or any sport. To the Yorkshire coming to this area yet again was set to bring about £60 million of revenue to this area. And this is the issue. Suddenly this massive knock-on effect. We're talking about the Grand National, and it's all the little bits that come along with that. We're talking, yeah, obviously gate receipts, but food, drink, hotels, sponsorships, all these things bring in so much money to the local areas. This is far beyond just a sport being able to maintain itself. It goes further and further. The knock-on effect to this could be catastrophic.
How long do you think clubs can afford for the game not to be played? Because at the minute we're talking April 3rd. I think the general belief is that will be extended. How long simply can we afford before clubs go up the wall?
I think there's different teams and different clubs that are in different positions, and some with backers which could keep them stable for a lengthier amount of time. But with players' wages as high as what they are as well, I think it's going to be very difficult for certain teams to be able to maintain that for, do you know what, even maybe a month or so. I think there's some people going to find themselves in a really tough position. Carves might be able to tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there are some clubs that actually pay players just to play. They're going to be fine, you know, and they're you're talking sort of National League One and you know, a couple of Championship players are in the same boat. But you know, as I alluded to before, it's going to be really difficult not getting the gates in. We spoke about sponsorship and people. I think that's all well and good. Everyone sort of understands that, and people that generally sponsor the rugby teams support them. You know, so they're not going to you've breached my contract and all that sort of thing. I think the big thing is the Championship and Champ 1 clubs. They're going to really sort of struggle with the day-to-day running of things. What we could do is get Earl to give a little bit of his testimonial money back, and that could support probably National League One.
I give most of that away in divorce, I'll be honest
with
you.
Well, there you go, yeah. Silly you. But no, but that's...
Not kidding.
That's...
I've given more houses away than Barrett's. Don't worry about that.
I've took it off track.
You threw that one in on purpose.
Sorry.
But no. Things aren't bad enough, you had to bring up that.
Well, it's doomsday.
Might as well get it all out there as well.
But it is about the bigger picture. You know, we've said that before. My wife, she's got a heart condition, I get it, the kids get it, pass it on, she's in big trouble, you know. So, yeah, you know, we're talking rugby league and how bad it is for the sport and the impact on things, but like I was saying before, you know, the bigger picture is lives are at risk, and you know, lives are going to be affected in this.
Are players in quarantine now? Generally,
some of them are. I think there's 4 Toronto players that have gone into quarantine, but I think they're just like me and you. You know, it's just a case of if you've got the symptoms, they're going into quarantine. Whether they could put them all on an island and just play all the games there.
That's what they were talking about in the NRL, wasn't it? Go to New Zealand and playing them all in
just
one venue.
So, well,
I think they're looking, again, they were looking at moving up above Brisbane and moving every team up there. And I think they were talking in excess of 1,000 people, which would include all the teams and the support staff. But I think as they've looked at that, they've realised that that's not practical either.
No.
Just cut the grass at Odsal. No one's been there for a few months. No,
there's
going to be no corona, and then
just
just quarantine them all in Odsal for a month, and we can keep playing.
I don't think we get the Queensland weather.
Well, there is a difference.
Like the Simpsons episode where the big glass bubble goes
the movie,
over.
As
Put
Gareth
the dome
said,
over Odsal.
one of the important parts is as well, I think for everybody is, Gareth mentions his own wife there. There's a lot of like personal stories. I think a lot of people are very anxious. I imagine players are anxious about their own families, coaches, referees, administrators, journalists. Everybody's, you know, around the country, depending on your character. There's a lot of very, very, very anxious people as well. And that all goes into the mix when, you know, decisions are being made about staffing and where you go. You know, it's really important.
Well, it does affect everyone. You know, from the media perspective, there are freelance national reporters out there who aren't going to have anything to write about. So what do they do? Like you said, you don't really realise the impact until you see the knock-on of everything that goes with it. So
You'd be lost without the refs.
No,
well, we're going to talk
We're
about
gonna lose some
referees.
major content.
But what you know?
How would we survive?
Can't wait to get into that later on. You know, the refs must be a concerning one. I mean, you aren't blessed with a lot of refs anyway. If one went down,
Well, don't forget we're talking about the players.
The
refs are in the same. We've got plenty of part-time officials who give up the time and get paid.
Yeah.
There's going to be no games to referee, so ultimately they ain't going to get paid out there. And then we employ a full-time squad. So much like a team, we've got to look after our people, and we will. So there's a lot of all that goes into it as well for the RFL. So that, you know, even the match officials have got a fair amount of concern as well. Some of them, it's their jobs also. So we're all, you know, relatively anxious, I would suggest.
I noticed you didn't deny Gareth's claims that you might get the boots dusted off.
Yeah, you never know. Depends what the game.
Everyone will be quaking in the boots.
They pinch the boots again, I think, for a few
yeah.
weeks later.
Let's move on. Talk about something more cheery. Lee Radford's been sacked.
Yeah, great news that.
Yeah. On a serious note, Gareth, you'll know him better than
Yeah.
most people. I guess first and foremost, before we talk about the way it was done, what's your take on that decision? You know, 6 rounds in, 7 rounds in.
I think
cut him?
so. Adam Pearson has not got the luxury of having sort of a lot of directors and people around him to talk him down. So when he gets irate, he's seen his team get hammered, and they did. They got hammered, and there was no excuse for it. He sees that the coach is getting it, and there's no one to sort of grab him and say, "Hang on a minute, let's just go have a cup of tea and or a pint or whatever. Let's talk about it. We can talk about it tomorrow, and then if we're still thinking the same on Monday, we'll go with that." Everyone else has. So the owners have got the final say, but they've got advisors almost, and Adam Pearson unfortunately hasn't. I think the way it was done, in my view, was a bit disrespectful. I thought, you know, from what Lee's done at Hull FC, you know, the double challenge cups and the way they've performed, really, they're a great team to watch. You know, I thought it could have been done a little bit better. Sports like that, you know, coaches are always going to get sacked, and after speaking to Lee, he's he's fine with it. You know, it's the team weren't performing, and that's
The funny
that's it.
thing is, knowing Lee, he's probably not bothered that it was done
Well,
like that.
I think he owns half of East Hull anyway, does Lee? So it's, you know, he's got a golf course, about 3 pubs, restaurants, bars. So you know, so he's all right in that respect. But you know, from a professional point of view, I know that he absolutely loved coaching. That's his thing. There's 12 jobs in Super League at that level. Now, there's only sort of Chris Chester and Brian McDermott that I can think of, British coaches that have left somewhere and bounced back. You know, Paul Anderson at Huddersfield. I mean, you can go back to Tony Smith at Wakefield. I think he's coaching Cast 16s now. You know, so they have to almost find their way back from the bottom up to the top again. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen for Lee if he wants to get back into the game. But I think for the moment, you know, he's sort of happy just to let things lie and have a think about the future.
Surely, Steve, it was preempted. Adam must have known to go on Sky that quick and to make the call that quick after the game. He must have felt that decision was closing in way before the start of that Warrington game.
I think Gareth said, you know, I would imagine in clubs that they have football meetings and regular discussions, particularly around your owner of your club and the head coach. So I would imagine, knowing Lee and Adam as well, that there'd been plenty of discussions over coming weeks, over the last few weeks, and maybe even the end of the season. And Hull have obviously spent a lot of money in the off season and brought in players, and imagine Lee's been heavily involved in all of that with Adam. So, you know, unless you're actually in the club and you're into the, you know, the finer inner workings of it, I'd be very surprised if both Lee and Adam had you know, neither of them have had some serious conversations over the weeks leading into it. You know, I think Adam said somewhere it was just that, you know, post game, the cameras are there. It has taken place, and he's asked a question, and you know, and he give the answer, and then people, you know, then decide how to take that, you know, whichever way they take that on. I spoke to Lee and back up what Gareth said. I think Lee's been fabulous. He's been a good coach in Super League. I don't think people forget that. You mentioned some coaches who've gone and not got back in. Well, there's, you know, Lee, like Brian McDermott's proved that he can coach teams at the highest level. His character is exemplary. You take the referees. He you know, I can't think of occasions where Lee Radford's just used the referees as a reason why his team wins and loses. He's always acted with a fair degree of dignity, and I think, you know, Lee will be back in the game pretty quick.
Here's a question, Earl. This is what I don't get about this decision. He was off contract at the end of last year, and they gave him a new deal. They gave him a new deal, and they let him effectively rebuild the team because they had a huge amount of players off. They let him do not him do the recruitment alone, but
It's his team.
It is his team. And he's made the calls on these players. They've then got rid of him after 7 games, having to spend all this money. If they weren't convinced by Lee Radford, why wait till he's spent your salary cap and then get rid of him, rather than, if you're not sure, get someone new in and let them rebuild the team? That's the thing that I don't quite understand about this.
It's a strange one for me as well, because I thought he was at probably the end of his life as a coach for Hull FC anyway. I thought he was really pushing the length of time that he's been there. I think the average amount of years is about 5 years at a club anyway.
Tops,
he's been really successful in what he's done. He deserves a lot of respect for what he's done, but I thought it probably was the end of his time in that sense. But then to give him the opportunity to then buy all these players in. I think they've been unlucky with a few injuries. I think it goes beyond just purchasing these players. It was time in my eyes, but he deserves a little bit more respect in the way that it was delivered in that sense. For me, I can only take it on face value of what I saw. Adam Pearson obviously calls it on air, which just is disgusting. It's horrible to see, and he deserves a lot more respect than that. But I know for sure there's conversations gone behind closed doors already. I don't think that's just literally just a snap judgment call at that moment in time. I believe it goes far beyond that. Face value, it looks horrible, it is horrible, but this is rugby league as well. This is something we seem to do in this sport, is we do so much right, but we do quite a lot wrong as well. And we pretend to be so professional at times, but we don't deal with things in the best way, and this is one of those situations in my eyes.
There's another way that, you know, again, obviously, Adam, if you spoke to Adam, he may say, well, look, I've got so much time for Lee that we did give him, we had a time where we give him the opportunity. I did not want this to happen, so we give him the opportunity to recruit, to start, to have an off-season.
But is that sensible? If you're having those doubts?
Well, I think Adam
100%.
Pearson's openly,
Gotta
in
give
the
him that
past,
chance.
has been very supportive of Lee Radford.
Absolutely.
Well, he
Very
said
much
before,
publicly.
he said in the past, he will always be the head coach of LSE while I'm here, didn't he?
And
That's
then
how
he
much faith he had.
potentially may regret saying that at times, because it then,
I think
in
he meant
opportunities like this. But at the time, you can be in love with your wife, as you were on about the divorce. You can be in love with your wife one year, you might be
Why does
divorcing
this
her
keep
the
getting
next.
brought up?
So
She's
the
trying to
point of the
offload.
whole matter is I think Adam, in the past, to be fair to him, I think he showed Lee, and vice versa, a fair amount of good partnership and togetherness.
No,
and sometimes it reaches the end.
I totally agree with you. I think we forget just how much support Lee's received from Adam Pearson. We talk about the amount of money he puts in as well.
But the point I'm trying to make, Gareth, has it not somewhat backfired? Because whoever he brings in now, he's got a talented team, no one will doubt that, but it's not going to be their team. And Earl, you'll know from when Paul Anderson left, he brought players in near the end of his tenure. Rick Stone came in, didn't rate those players at all, and it caused a mighty salary cap.
There's
issue
another
on Huddersfield.
opportunity though here. I hear this in rugby league, and where Earl says you know, rugby league shoots itself in the foot. Well, I'm sure again, you talk Adam Pearson. If he's going down a process now of due diligence, which he claims he is, looking for a new coach, the first thing you do in your interview surely is say to the coach, this is the team. True. There's no more money coming in this year. You tell me what you can do with this team and what you're doing wrong. You don't hire a coach and then the coach in 3 months' time says, I didn't want these players, because you shouldn't have hired him in the first place.
There's always going to be a rebuilding phase. Every coach wants their players in. So, you know, it happens whenever a coach goes in. I think it got to the stage where Lee had his team in. That team, the whole team was his. It not worked. I think, you know, there were rumblings a few years ago of next game he doesn't win, he's gone, and, you know, all this sort of thing. You hear these rumours. And I've no doubt that those are the conversations that was talking about between Adam Pearson and Lee Radford. But, you know, with
Gareth, can I stop you and bring you back on this? Sorry, tough.
No,
Tough.
no.
We need to have a break. We'll get back to Gareth and talk more about Lee Radford and Hull FC straight after this. Don't forget, Backchat is available on FreeSports throughout the season on all of these platforms. And you can also catch up via the FreeSports player by registering for absolutely free. Welcome back to the final part of this week's Rugby League Backchat. Gareth, I very rudely interrupted you. Please carry on with the point you were making.
I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Forget it. Not doing it.
All right, well,
No, I
we'll
can't live with this.
we'll de-mic you now. We'll crack on. Go on.
No, I forgot. I've genuinely forgotten what I was going to say. I think we were speaking a little bit about the support that Radders has had and what have you. But, you know, Adam Pearson is good for the game. He's good for Hull FC. And Hull FC, if anyone's ever played there, Hull's a rugby league bubble, you know, and the amount of pressure that comes with that, I can only imagine as an owner, head coach, is probably tenfold of other places. So you can sort of forgive the reactions of Adam Pearson and doing things straight away, you know, to appease the supporters and make sure they're still coming through the turnstiles and everything else. So you know, there's a lot more to it than Adam Pearson just going and doing the wrong thing. You know, there's a lot of mitigating factors, I think, that have caused this sort of end result.
I don't want to give up this cap thing for a minute, though. I'm going to come to you, Earl. I can take the point you're making. You tell the coach, these are your players, you get on. You also made the point, there will be a rebuild, there'll be some players brought in. A lot of these players that they've signed on big money are on 2-3 year deals. It's not going to be easy for whoever comes in to build their own squad, is it, Earl? No. And like I said, this is something that happened at Huddersfield, and it took you a while to get out of.
See, I get frustrated with this because it annoys me that we talk about coaches, and coaches have their systems. They have a set system that they try and fit everybody into. But by doing that, you have to change so much around you, as in so many players and things like that, where if it's just a coach that comes in and adapts to what he's got already and actually tries to work out a better system of using the players that they already have, then surely you've got less to change. But it's about adapting. And I think in this sport, we focus too much on one coach saying, I've got this system, this is how I play, you all have to fit into this. And I've been a part of that as well. I've been told of how I have to physically change shape just to fit into a system, which totally ruined my game. Took everything away from me.
So what was that? What happened there then?
So we were told to go back to the Bradford days, you know, with the big packs where we're just going to dominate teams. So I had to put loads of weight on, put size on. I was smashing the weights out. I was strong as anything. Felt really good about myself, apart from I was massive. I went into the first tackle, ran in, bounced a couple of people off, went on the floor, and I couldn't breathe. I was that tired. I got up and I couldn't even run around. A few weeks later, I got told I wasn't getting around the pitch quick enough and I needed to lose weight. Totally took everything away from my game because I was told I needed to change to fit into a system. Whereas I had a lot of ability, as in I was fairly mobile for a big guy, could offload, offered a lot to a team which could be used within that team, and it worked really well under Nathan Brown, for instance. I don't understand why we have to bring coaches in that you have to then bring in a load of players to fit into their system where they should adapt to the unbelievably talented players that are already there. It doesn't make any sense to me.
He's made it. I think Earl's nailed that. Absolutely, because let's take St Helens for example with Justin Holbrook. So similar to the Lee situation, Kieran Cunningham, who, as everyone accepts, was no bigger legend as a player in that town as probably Kieran was, and he was a coach, and for whatever reason, it wasn't working out. It must have been a difficult position, if you remember, at that time for him and McManus, Mike Rush, to make that decision on Kieran, probably similar to what Adam Pearson's gone through with Lee. But they did. But Justin Holbrook came in and potentially, with the exception of one player being Ben Barber, he changed the dynamic of the team. And he was an halfback, and that's why they brought him in, around the football side of the club. And the rest of it is history. And he didn't change a massive amount of players, which exactly backs up what Earl says. And what I said earlier, that, you know, you talk about Lee and the players that he signed, and again, being fair, he lost Manu Mar after 1 week. He lost Chris Satay through suspension. He's lost a few players as well that he did bring in that made a difference. He got Albert Kelly suspended, so he did not always have the team that, if people say, on the field every week. That, again, that's not making excuses, it's just a fact. So in effect, I have to say, my time in the game, I back Earl 100%. If you're applying for the Hull FC job and you want the Hull FC job, you've got a very good team and a very good club. Don't come in after 4 weeks. I imagine Adam Pearson will have them conversations. Don't come in after 4 weeks and expect me to move players on, because you've got this man coming in as well, because players have signed for a club. They've relocated the families, they're joining there, and whoever comes in as a coach has got to fit around the team.
Is then the man that Hull should look for Ian Watson? Because he's had a huge turnover of players and got the best out of nearly every one of them.
To be totally honest, I agree with both what Steve and Earl have said. I don't think it's about the players as such. I think the next coach needs to be a motivator. As a player, the best games that I've played are under coaches that I want to play for. You know, we all do the same systems, run the same plays, defend very similar. Everything, you know, we all know exactly what to do. now having somebody that comes in and motivates those players, maybe that's why Lee Radford's gone, been there, and that's why there's such a short shelf life for coaches, 5 years. Do those players then get demotivated and start not putting those 1% efforts in that make all the difference? And a new coach comes along, if he can sort of energise people, John Keir was a great one at that. He can do it throughout the season, Challenge Cup games and things. He gets players wanting to run through a wall for him. And that's, I think, what needs to happen with the next coach. I think the players are there, like you say, you just get on with what you've got. The structures are all going to be the same. I think as well, like Lee Breers is coaching now. I know he's a bit off being a head coach, but having played alongside him, Lee was really clever at using the players around him for what they were good at. So if someone needed an early ball, he'd make sure they got it. If someone liked to come under and they were really good at that, he'd make sure that happened. He wasn't going and trying to do everything and I need to put this play on, this play on. He was looking at the person next to him, inside him, wherever. He's really good at that. Do that. And that's the sort of mentality I think that the next coach needs to have.
As you said though as well, again, for Adam, you've got to look who's available. You've got to look at the people who's available, who's actually going to make a real difference to Hull. It is a very big decision for him as a club. Like you've got Kieran Pertil and Andy Last. Kieran's got a third degree of experience in his coaching. I imagine Adam will look at and say Kieran could be a candidate. And then you look overseas, and I've seen Craig Fitzgibbon's name mentioned. But he's involved with probably the best club in the NRL as an assistant. It's going to take a lot of work from Adam to convince him that potentially Hull is where he needs to be. And so it is looking who's available in the game.
Would John Keir fancy it?
I think John Keir would love to go back to Super League. What is he now, 98? 97?
I think you're being a bit nice to him there.
Injustice. Yeah, well, he's all right, he's over 100. But no, I think John's just an absolute competitor. He's got a real zest for life, for rugby league, for motivating people. He's very professional. He talks really, really well. I think he would have another crack at Super League if he was given the opportunity. I do. I think he's liking sort of doing what he's done. He's rebuilt. He's done things. I think at Wakefield he was a bit stifled, and he wasn't allowed to do exactly what he wanted to do. He's old school, so maybe I know a lot of the Islanders. They can switch off. They can sort of get a bit sloppy in training if they're not on their A game. When they are on their A game, they're the best in the world. But when they're not, and when they've just given up a little bit, that's when they're suffering. I think that's a little bit of what we've seen. John Keir doesn't let that happen. People like him, they don't let that happen. What I would like to see over there, but again, we're talking overseas, and he's already involved in the club, is Jason Demetriou. I know him from his days at Wakefield. I'm friends with Jason, and from what he's done, Tyrone McCarthy played with him at, I can't remember the club in Australia that it was at, sort of the Queensland Cup there. I said he was absolutely amazing, and Tyke I've got a high opinion of and a lot of respect for. He's a clever lad. So to see him over here would be awesome. Now, unfortunately, I think they've just sort of nicked him away. I think if there was this opportunity last year, he'd have probably gone for it.
Well, time will tell. Steve, given that we've got you here, we've got to ask you about a few ref-related matters.
Yeah, you don't, but you can.
Well, I want to, so I'm going to. I want to ask you first and foremost about the post that was on the Total RL forum that was from the partner of a referee who said that things had got too much, the abuse that they'd received at this particular game. There was, I think, it was homophobic comments. There was a wide range of verbal abuse. Verbal abuse towards referees isn't new, but it seems to me that it's getting worse. Even from when you were reffing, they probably had a reason to shout at you.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's your take on this at the minute? Is it becoming a bigger problem than ever for the game?
Yeah, it's a problem. I'll give you an example. This week I've just had some details from the Yorkshire Junior League. It's been going 3 weeks. There's brawls, referee abuse, club managers, touchline managers who can't take care of their own spectators. Never mind the referees look after the game. So it's huge. What it does ongoing is it affects recruitment. It affects recruitment at the grassroots. So this year alone, we've recruited 72 officials from the beginning of the year. That's running courses in Salford, Wigan, down in the forces, etc. Now, but what happens is you can recruit them, but you got to be able to retain them. That's the first start. Continuing the player, like the player pathways, just continue the pyramid. And what happens is the environments for referees to develop and get better have got to be good. There's got to be a good environment. Same for the players. It has to be a good environment to get the players and everything to be right for them. So some of these people go into these leagues, for example, and some of them are young. Some of them have just said, I'll have a go at refereeing and see what, and they're actually put off by the environment. So automatically after a few months, they go, this ain't for me. If we can get them past the initial stages and some of them have the resilience and maturity and all types of things and experiences as ex-players, etc., to cope with some of it, some of them don't. So we naturally lose a percentage. And then the level of abuse that you talk around, you know, the game, it does get worse. It's not just rugby league, it's a society issue. It's not just, you know, let's not get carried away. There's always been an amount, but it is worse in a lot of walks of life. Whether you're a school teacher, whether you're a policeman, wherever it is, it's worse. So we accept that. That doesn't mean it's right. You wrote the game. You said the game's full of excuses. I think you wrote it in one of your pieces. Yeah. There's always an excuse. There's always a blame culture. Well, one of the biggest blame cultures in the game is let's blame the ref. Yep. And rugby league, and we're in this period of time now, how much we love this game and how much we're going to miss it for this period of time. But one thing that happens, and has happened as long as I've been involved in it, is there's a blame culture. So whenever a team loses, one of the easiest things to do is blame the referee. Unfortunately, you take Super League, for example, 6 teams will lose every week. Mm-hmm. If not a draw, throw a draw in there every now and then. But the first person often to go to is to blame the referee. Mm-hmm. Now, I've seen plenty of scores at the beginning of this season where teams have scored 0 points or 4 points and been beat by 40 and 50. Now, you know, with the best will in the world, come on. Yeah. This call went against us in the 12th minute. It changed the whole momentum. Well,
here's one of the calls.
Yeah.
I've only got 2 minutes. I want to rattle through a few things. A lot of people are saying they play the ball. So there's been the thing about changing to play the ball. Some say, oh, it's inconsistent. Sometimes they do pull it up, sometimes they don't. Are you happy with the way that that's been officiated since it's come in?
Yeah, well, Garreth was on the committee. He was on the same committee. It was not, again, that went through a great degree of consultation with a lot of people, including Super League CEOs, the Laws Committee, the RFL, Gareth Players Manager, Paul Sculthorpe. The names go on. It went into a lot of debate. And one of the points that we got to, there is a misconception that every ball in the NRL is played by the foot. It's not, as you say. We took the policy from the NRL discussion, which players must make a genuine attempt to play the ball. Now, what you've got to ask, one of the things that were discussed in the Laws Committee is the biggest thing in rugby league, do you want referees to go out and blow 30 penalties because they miss it by that much with a foot? Does the game need that? Or does the game need a fluid, eye-entertaining, ball-in-play sport, talking about the players, not talking about the referee, or has just missed it by that much? What we then ruled on was we were saying players in possession of the ball have a duty occur. This cheating that went on last year, or gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it, we got rid of. Now, if players want to place the ball around the man or fall over or push forward and push the markers out, there's a way to deal with that now. The ball's real lost. And I have to say, I think if you look at the games and you look at some of the players, I think there's been a fair degree of real cooperation and improvement.
Massive.
Gareth was one of the ones on the committee, weren't you? We're fairly damning about the state.
Oh, yeah.
Gareth, I'm going to have to
That's it.
cut you out again because we've run out of
What a
time.
surprise.
I'm sorry. We'll have to get you on another week to talk. Sorry, gents. I'd have loved to have
You're
spoke
not
genuinely
sorry.
about.
You're not
I am.
sorry.
I am because we've got loads that
No,
we
I'm
could have
not having
spoke
it.
about. But we're going to have to wrap up. Thanks to my guests as ever. We'll hopefully be back next week. In the meantime, goodbye.